El Spaniard.
¡Ay, qué rico! ¡El bombardero de Barcelona!
El Contusión. La Pistola.
Este pase de Ricky Rubio y lo que ha hecho en este tercer cuarto.
El Boricua.
Lo tocó al último J.J. Barea.
El Oso Loco. And El Primero.
Lee, fine, got it back inside to Lee. Lee again.
Butch Lee was a pioneer.
Basketball people to this day know how good he was.
But we had nobody could guard him that night. Nobody.
When we won a championship, that was Magic that ran over there and gave him that gigantic hug.
This is the story of the first Hispanic player in the NBA.
Matt, you're a terrible passer, papi. Necesitaba defensa.
Butch Lee still embraces the game. Today at his Point Guard Academy, the NBA's first Hispanic player gives the children of Puerto Rico their first exposure to basketball. He was not much older than them when he left for New York City, and he knew nothing of the sport that would make him famous.
At the age of 6 years old, we moved to Harlem, New York, and I used to like to run track. So when I got to my neighborhood, I would always ask my friends, let's race, because I just like that competition, you know. And then one time, a good friend of mine told me, here we don't run, here we play basketball. That's when I started playing, because, you know, in New York, that's all it was, you know, the asphalt jungle. Basketball, basketball, basketball.
Just about every basketball legend in the world has starred at Rucker Park, from Wilt Chamberlain to Kobe Bryant. Butch Lee's parents brought him to Harlem. Destiny brought him within walking distance of the greatest playground court in the world.
It was just about a couple of blocks from my house. We lived on 153rd Street and 8th Avenue, and the park is 155th Street and 8th Avenue. So I got a chance to see Tiny Archibald, Julius Erving, Pee Wee Kirkland, Joe Hammond, all the famous playground players.
You know, in the 60s and 70s, the Rucker was known as the place you had to prove yourself.
It was big time, you know. We all knew about it, and we knew about what it meant to play there.
When you grow up there, you have to be a special type of player because some of the best are there. My uncle took us there once when I was a teenager to watch it.
You know, I was loving it every summer. I got a chance to see the great players from the Rucker play against the Baker League. They would have that all-star game, so I got a chance to see Earl Monroe and Archie Clark playing against the top guys we had from New York.
Butch grew up during a time where there was a lot of great players that came through. So in order to survive in the Rucker, you had to be good. You had to be really good.
That was something incredible, really. And when I talk about the Rucker Park, you almost have to talk about the whole New York basketball scene.
Thousands pack into Rucker Park to see the legends, the Pearl, the Hawk, the Skate. They marvel at their innovations, the slam dunk, the sky hook, the crossover. They judge the best the game has to offer, high school phenoms, street legends, and NBA All-Stars. For more than 50 years, this has been the beating heart of New York City basketball.
There's a different style of basketball, you know, the penetration, the ball handling, a little bit of a show, a little bit of a showman, a little bit of, you know, they're going to get it done. But you knew the players from New York.
They got a lot of different ways to get there, but when they get there, they're fundamentally sound. And that's what Butch was. He may get there like a New Yorker, but he got to the, you know, he shot a shot like a basketball player.
He had a signature move that I'd never seen before. He was the first guy I've ever seen use a hesitation move, stop and go move, and he used it to perfection. He had an Oscar Robertson style game. Not flashy, not fast.
He had some flash, but when he got into the actual motion of going up for a shot or something like that, it wasn't flash. It was just a power base that exploded.
There are two types of Rucker Park legends, those who got out and those who did not. Kareem, Dr. J, and Tiny made it to the NBA. The Helicopter, the Destroyer, and Pee Wee did not. Butch Lee wanted to play at the next level.
Well, here you have my famous jersey. At one time was hanging in Marquette, number 15. And this jersey got fame not only because we won the national championship, but we were one of the first teams to wear their uniforms outside the pants. As you can see, this is made for wearing outside of your pants.
Butch Lee had no more business being at Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin than its basketball coach, Al McGuire. A Bronx native who played at St. John's and later for the Knicks, McGuire's strength was having a connection to the most fertile basketball recruiting ground in the country, New York City. By getting Butch Lee out of New York, he helped him jump to the national stage.
You know, in New York City, you grow up playing playground basketball, so you get a chance to develop a lot of ability. You know, your ball handling, your scoring ability, your shooting ability. Growing up in any big city, there's a lot of one-on-one basketball. And when you get to the university, then you have to start playing a better brand of basketball, a better brand of team basketball. And I think Al McGuire was one of the best in that area, you know, very fundamentally sound. And he tried to act a little bit like he didn't know that much and he didn't care that much, but he was a stickler for the fundamentals of the game.
Butch Lee badly wanted to play for the U.S. Olympic team, but North Carolina coach Dean Smith did not include him in the 100 players invited to try out for the team. Instead, Lee played for his native Puerto Rico and nearly led one of the greatest upsets in sporting history.
In 1976, when Puerto Rico played, the United States team, coached by Coach Dean Smith, Mitch Kupchak was on that team.
Well, I remember a lot of those guys, when we went to tip off, I played against in high school.
And then all of a sudden we heard that Butch was playing on the Puerto Rican team. We figured, hey, it'll be all right. We can take care of him.
And a lot of the players on that team had New York connections.
We went into the game with a lot of confidence. You know, I remember Earl Brown. He was my, we were rooming together in Montreal. And he was saying, oh, we don't have a chance, we don't have a chance. But I knew the players we had, you know, Raymond Dalmau, Neftali, those guys grew up in New York, you know, so they didn't have that fear.
That was on the ultimate stage, and it was against the United States.
It was a great feeling just being in the Olympics. And then when you talk about Puerto Rico, you know, just less than 4 million people going up against the USA, which is the giant in basketball. It was really crazy.
Candidly, I didn't think they were going to come at us as hard as they did.
We were kind of nervous that if we lost the pool, you know, that we wouldn't advance. And all of a sudden, we're having a hell of a time to beat Puerto Rico, mainly because of Butch.
I was known for defense, and I had a hard time handling him. And Coach Smith, he'd run, you know, myself at him. He'd run Phil at him.
He kept putting guards in to try to guard him, but Butch was just, he had that night.
Phil Ford was as good a guard as I've ever played against. And he gave Phil the blues. He gave me the blues, and Phil was better than I was.
And we couldn't control it. He kept getting in the paint, kept going wherever he wanted to go, and then he was finishing or dropping it off. He was the main guy we had to stop to get to the next game.
Because he was carrying the team. The good thing about a point guard, when they're that good, they have the ball in their hands all the time.
I mean, I think he had 30-something. I mean, it was just a hell of a game. And everybody's concerned that we may lose it, you know.
And he made 2 or 3 shots where he'll just get into you and bump you, or, you know, bump into you, clear space, and he'll make a shot, and it's a jump shot, not a layup. It's like, oh. And he does that 3 times in a row. You realize, oh, this is going to be a long night. And it was.
We couldn't lose that game. And he was making it hard. I mean, I think it came down to the last play. At the end, we ended up pulling out, but we had nobody that could guard him that night. Nobody.
He had just a ridiculous game against us and almost beat us. That was a very stressful, I think, moment for Americans watching the game on TV. And I'm sure Coach Smith as an assistant, you know, were pretty stressed as well.
To have that type of game where you're going to lose by 1 point, you know, that's other than the Russian game, that was the closest game ever in the Olympics for the U.S. You know, how can you even dream of that scenario? You know, like, I didn't get chosen for the USA team. I was able to play with Puerto Rico Olympic team, and then to have the game of my life in that scenario, you know, I think I made like 15 out of 18 shots, and take the last shot that probably could have won the game, you know, if I didn't get the offensive foul. You know, that's a script that, who can write a script like that, you know?
Lee scored 35 in the 1-point loss to the United States, losing when he was called for a controversial charge late in the game. The following March, he would again show that he was among the finest players in the world, leading Marquette to the NCAA title game against North Carolina and Dean Smith.
I remember, growing up in New York, we would watch the NCAA games, and after we would see all the top players, everyone would go out in the park and try to imitate those players. And at that time, we had a chance to watch David Thompson. So he was the best player in the country, outstanding leaper and a crowd pleaser. And I always thought to myself, I want to be like David Thompson. I want to be the man, So I had that in my head as I was playing basketball. We were ranked number 2 behind the Indiana team in 1976. They ranked them as the greatest college team of all time. We were ranked number 2 to that team. So I remember being here in Puerto Rico and talking to my friend Bo Ellis. I was like, Bo, the next year, that's our year. We were number 2, and I'm thinking we were going to be number 1 this year. Even though Al McGuire had announced his retirement, we were preseason number 1.
And actually, we had beat them that year at Michigan. We beat them on the last game. It was, I think, next to the last game of the regular season in Ann Arbor.
So we lost a few games, but we got back our confidence that we were a top team, and that run through the NCAA tournament was incredible,
Once they got in the tournament, they just started playing so well as a group. But again, he was the main guy, with Bo Ellis, and they had a great team. They had a really nice team.
For us to finish meeting Dean Smith, who was actually the coach of the USA team when they played in the Olympics, and Phil Ford, I got a chance to get back at those guys for beating us in the Olympics.
I was a huge North Carolina fan, even back then. And Marquette and North Carolina met up in the Final Four in the championship game. And I remember him destroying the Tar Heels.
To cap that off, being the most outstanding player, that was a great feeling. And really more so for my friends and family, because when you're out in the middle of it, you start gaining that confidence day by day. But your family, everybody is on the outside. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know how you've been practicing. So they're a little more nervous than the player himself.
Confidence made him believe he could play against the best. But talent was behind his most outstanding player performance in leading Marquette to the NCAA title. The next year, he won the Naismith Player of the Year award, and in 2012, as part of the 75th anniversary of March Madness, Lee was named one of the top 75 NCAA tournament players of all time.
He was just so happy. He just grabbed me and started squeezing me. You see that smile that he has, one of the best smiles of all sports, and that was just a great moment.
He nearly led an Olympic-sized upset. He was the finest college basketball player in the land. And then he was the first. In 1978, Butch Lee became the first Hispanic player in the NBA.
That's something so incredible. It's hard to believe, because you can be very good and you can be a star, but it's only one time that you're going to be the first.
Butch Lee was a pioneer. And not only was he a pioneer, he was a unique basketball player. During those times in that era, you didn't hear about too many players from other countries or, other international players.
Yeah, definitely he meant a lot. Opened the doors for us so they could see players from Puerto Rico.
The 10th overall pick by the Atlanta Hawks, Lee scored 18 points in the season opener. He was traded to Cleveland, where he averaged 11.5 points a game, but he was slowed by an injury in his second year. Late in his second season, he was traded to the Los Angeles Lakers.
I grew up in New York, so I seen Walt Frazier against Jerry West and Willis Reed against Wilt Chamberlain. So I was very familiar with the rich history that the Lakers had. Then you get there and you're going to be playing with Magic Johnson, who could be the best playmaker of all time. You're playing with Kareem Jabbar, probably the best big man of all time. That's like Disney World for any basketball player. So the way Magic played, so excited, getting everybody involved. We just had a great atmosphere. And with that atmosphere is going to come good things. When you have a guard of that magnitude joining Kareem Jabbar, that's a combination for explosive things. We had Michael Cooper, Norm Nixon, and Cooper, was a defensive specialist.
They may frustrate him a little bit.
There's that Cooper loop that they call. Butch was a great player, a scoring guard, and that was something that the Lakers were looking for. 6'2", 6'3", but actually could score.
You think about teams nowadays trying to make something happen, you want to get a great point guard. You want a great rim protector. And then you want a defensive player that can check anybody. With that combination, we kind of little by little start understanding that the Lakers can be a championship team.
There it is, it's over, and the most valuable player is Magic Johnson. He starts at center, plays forward and guard, and leads the Los Angeles Lakers to a world championship.
I think he has probably the best spot any Lakers ever wanted was when we won a championship. That was Magic that ran over there and gave him that gigantic hug. And I think that was significant of Butch's pride right there because, again, everybody wants to be a star at the next level, and the next level being the NBA. But here he was still taking hold of his role on the team, and that was a special moment.
You could see that Butch not only was happy about the win, but he knew that what it meant to his heritage and to his, his culture, and he had won in college, really blossomed as an Olympian, and then to be able to win a NBA championship kind of brought everything full circle for him. So that photo of Magic and Butch together embracing I think is historic.
That was amazing. I knew it happened, but I didn't know they had that on camera, and I never expected that it was going to grow to the magnitude that it has. Every year as we watch the games, me and my family and my friends, I get a lot of calls. Oh, Butch, I just saw you and Magic on TV hugging, So my kids have had a chance to see it numerous occasions, and it's incredible. That photo probably is the most famous photo in the history of the NBA, and for me to be part of it, it's like it's very exciting and very humbling.
The public address system, as great as it is, will not carry over the thunderous ovation being extended to the world champions by this crowd.
The trade that brought Lee to the Lakers from Cleveland also came with a draft pick, the Cavaliers' first-round choice in 1982. The Lakers used it to take a guy named James Worthy.
Butch Lee was a great college player and a great team player. Unfortunately, in the pro level, it didn't pan out for a long time. Simply because when you get to the pro level, there's a lot of different things you have to do to stay there.
But that shows you how the NBA is so fickle and how teams don't necessarily fit a player's style of play. And Butch came to that team expecting to score, and we welcomed him with open arms. It was a difficult transition for him, but again, he hung in there that whole year.
There's a lot of reasons why guys don't play 10, 15 years in the NBA. Sometimes it's injury, sometimes it's you don't have a position.
You can't have your same college game. And I think, too, he had nagging injuries.
If you're not careful, you get yourself hurt because you keep going into the land of the giants where he was used to playing. These guys in the NBA, they knock you down. Now, they'll pick you up, but they'll knock you down again the next time. And at some point, your body doesn't take that well.
I hurt my knee. I had a torn cartilage. At that time, it was a little more complicated than now. Nowadays, you suffer that injury, not everyone, but Russell Westbrook, for example, he'll come back in a month. But of course, right now, if I was to have that injury, that's an injury that you're gonna have and rehab, and in maybe a month, 2 months, you're gonna be back out there on the court.
Didn't play as probably as long as he liked, but he got a ring. A lot of guys didn't get that.
I mean, he had a great college career, and internationally, although they didn't win the gold medal, you would say he was very successful.
If you're in your homeland and you watch Butch Lee take the U.S. to task, it's like, oh, that can be done now. And so that definitely was part and parcel to, I think, why we've had success. We've had success because international players have added to that success, and Butch was a big part of that.
Suffice to say, he was a great high school player, a great college player, and a player that I think basketball people to this day know how good he was.
Lee's knee injury forced him to retire after the 1980 finals, but he played on in Puerto Rico's Baloncesto Superior Nacional, where he won another championship.
I'm very proud of that. Again, that's just the hard work that you put into basketball. A lot of people say, oh, what about this? You thought you were going to get this. I didn't know what awards I can get. I just knew I put in a lot of good time practicing and working hard to get better. And when you do that, like, a lot of good things will fall your way. And that's pretty much what happened to me, with hard work and a lot of help from my friends, my coaches, and my family. I was able to make those different things happen. And I'm a very proud man today to have those accomplishments.
Butch later coached in the BSN and teaches hundreds of children each year at his point guard academy.
This is important because I cannot run like I used to, cannot play like I used to. So what is it worth having all that knowledge if you don't share it with the younger generation, with the young kids growing up that love basketball?
On opening day of the 2014 season, there were 101 international players from 37 countries and territories. Butch Lee is the only player in basketball history to win a high school title, an NCAA title, an NBA title, and a BSN title. And he was El Primero,